What a crazy week for college football. All the games just wrapped up, and I'm still so hyped up as to all the games that we got this week. SEC really pulled through, as they always do. They tend to do this where you've got the rest of the conferences still kind of playing in their little cupcake schedules, whereas the SEC just kind of get on with it. But again, I'm here to prove week in and week out that just because those numbers are beside those SEC teams doesn't mean that we don't know it's a good game. Naturally, us as college football fans, we know that it is a good game. But it is these faulty ranking systems in order to tell the general population and to sell the idea that, hey, like this is a really good matchup because we've got two teams that are rated so high. But these ranking systems are purely done off of complete random people that have no true experience into the college football world. Does that make me any more qualified than them? No, absolutely not. And that's why I am not here to say, oh, these are my rankings and these are the only rankings, da-da-da-da-da. Nope. I am here to provide what I think the AP poll is going to come up with later today, just to prove the idea of how outlandish these rankings are so that you guys can stop taking it so seriously, because in the grand scheme of things, they really do not matter. But again, to quickly go through it, LSU against Florida. Again, a very kind of tipsy-topsy matchup between these two teams. And again, it really proves the idea that just because you have a funny-looking number between your name doesn't mean that you are that good of a team compared to everyone else. I mean, look at Florida last week, getting absolutely manhandled by South Florida, let's be honest. And then they go on the road to Death Valley, and they low-key had one foot in the door for a good portion of the game. But LSU naturally kind of clawed their way back and ended up winning this game by 10 points. A great outing by them, but in the grand scheme of things, Florida has performed so badly throughout the season that you would expect a better performance from LSU. But again, the thing is that sometimes that's just how these things work. Let's keep in mind that this is LSU's first SEC matchup. And the thing is that you look at a guy like DJ Lagway, the quarterback for Florida, he had 5 interceptions, but he threw 50 passes, or he at least attempted 50 passes. Like, that's naturally going to happen. And the thing is that you could say the same thing for South Florida if South Florida had the same assets as LSU, but that's obviously not the case. Speaking of South Florida, Miami doing what Florida should have done last week and just handling their business, doing what needed to be done, and they were at home. South Florida, it was a nice story while it lasted, and I feel like I speak for everyone when I say that we wanted South Florida to win, but as soon as that game started, Miami knew what they were doing. Georgia, Tennessee, I mean, again, you want to talk about SEC classics to really, like, at the beginning of the year, this was a great game. Georgia, as soon as that game was going to overtime, I knew exactly who was winning, and that was just based off of who the better coach was, and that's Kirby Smart. 10 out of 10 times. And they end up getting that win by 3 points. Texas with a decent win against UTEP. Notre Dame, big upset, probably the biggest upset this entire week against Texas A&M. And they're at home. So now Notre Dame 0-2. They're the 8th seed last week. We'll go into it a little bit more. And then you've got, a team like Florida State who didn't play this week. South Carolina actually get majorly upset by Vanderbilt. Clemson, don't even get me started. We are not going to be talking about this team a whole lot. And then to kind of round out the bottom here, again, the middle of the pack teams like Oklahoma, Iowa State with a kind of close game against Arkansas State, but they narrowly avoid that. Tennessee obviously losing to Georgia really is an unfortunate loss for them. Ole Miss, again, with a great matchup against Arkansas. We already talked about South Florida. Alabama beat Wisconsin, and outside of that, there really aren't a whole lot of other crazy matchups that were going on. Again, these teams basically did everything that they were supposed to do. So again, these were the rankings from last week. And again, I am not here to come up with a ranking system where I am saying that this is the right ranking system. No, I'm here to provide an outlandish ranking system that may or may not be very similar to the AP poll, just to, again, prove how ridiculous these rankings are. So we're going to do it a little bit differently here. I'm just going to go team by team here and just basically explain the thought process, starting up with the number 1 team in the nation this year. It's going to be Penn State. Let's be honest. Ohio State and Ohio, I am very excited to see where this rivalry goes between these two teams. But at the end of the day, I know that the argument is going to be, oh, well, their win against Ohio wasn't really that dominant. Whereas Penn State's win against a basketball school like Villanova, oh, that's a quality win. They got to jump Ohio State in the rankings. And obviously, that means that we're going to be having Ohio State right here in the second spot. Again, nothing too crazy, just these two switching places. And again, it's honestly about that time where the college football AP poll kind of goes, oh, well, let's switch it up a little bit. They always do this. It's very rare that we actually see the number one persistently stay the number one unless we're talking about the college football rankings. And the AP poll in particular, they love to do this kind of stuff, especially 2, 3, 4 weeks into the season. And I think now's the perfect time to do it, especially when you look at Ohio State's win against Ohio and go, well, I don't know that. One of those things. Now let's go to number 3. Number 3, I feel like this isn't too much of a shocker, but Miami at the 3 spot. Again, you can't deny that they handled business against a team that was getting a lot of hype. But the other thing is that this game was being broadcasted on the CW. Not a lot of eyes, not a lot of pressure either. And it's not like Miami really packs out their stadium as much as they used to. So I feel like this was kind of like an easy breezy win, but naturally this will kind of bump them up to the 3 spot. Now you might be wondering, oh, well, LSU beat Florida. Why would they not stay in the 3 spot? Because Florida's a bad team now, apparently, because they dropped out of the rankings last week. They're going to remember that, and they're going to go, oh, well, that's 20-10 isn't a quality win. They're going to say, oh, they should have put like 30 past them. So for that matter, not only is LSU not going to be here, I actually have them right here in the 5 spot, right? So Georgia, again, like on the road, in overtime against Tennessee compared to a 20-10 win against Florida at home, they're going to favor Georgia any day of the week. Now, the other question that you might be asking is, oh, well, wasn't Oregon somewhere here? Yeah, Oregon was somewhere here, and now they're going to drop all the way down to 6. Keep in mind that last week they dropped Georgia 2 spots, then put Oregon up 2 spots. They literally just did a little switcheroo, right? And now they have as much justification to do that again with Georgia and Oregon essentially, but also flip Miami and LSU as well. These moves are coordinated and these moves are planned out because they know that if certain scenarios arise with certain situations, they can do stuff like this and be like, well, you didn't really have a problem with it last week, because no one was talking about the fact that Georgia and Oregon just flip-flopped over a team that arguably didn't deserve to be flip-flopped over. And now that they're going to do it again, the whole argument is going to be like, well, we did it last week, so can't really have a problem with it. And that's why I brought it up, and now here we are. Oregon 6, Georgia 4, LSU, Miami, sandwiching them in between. Now, the team coming after them is going to be Texas. Not the greatest win of all time against UTEP. There's obviously a big speculation as to how good Arch Manning really is. So I feel like the AP poll will definitely save their breath and just not move Texas at all. I would be interested to see maybe Texas drop to like an 8 or a 9 spot, and that's to allow this team to jump ahead of them. Yeah, that's right. Florida State is in your top 10, folks. Florida State is in your top 10 this week. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I guarantee it, but it would be one of the dumber things that you'd look back and go, how did we not see this coming, right? I would be very curious to see if they would put a Florida State team above Texas here, especially since Alabama is still going to be ranked, and that's still going to be a ranked win on Florida State's part. And then under that is just going to be a filler team. Again, just kind of like moving up the ranks. Illinois last week were 9. They played Western Michigan, held them to a 0, scored 38 points. But again, I think that it's just the irony that Florida State would have a bye week and they would go, you know what? Let's have Florida State jump Illinois. Even though Illinois had a pretty, did what they were supposed to do. But this is just, again, these 3, the 7, 8, 9 spot for me, these are definitely varied. I could see it going, kind of fluctuating a little bit. I could even see Illinois 7, Florida State 8, and then Texas 9. But realistically, before we can figure out how good Arch Manning is, I just don't realistically think that there's anything that, there's nothing there to say, oh, well, Texas is a bad team for as of right now. Then making it to the top 10 in God knows how long is going to be Texas A&M. First ranked win against, I'm pretty sure it was a top 15 opponent on the road in over a decade. And I mean, it was deserved. They fully took advantage of all the mistakes that Notre Dame had to offer. Think about the fact that if they didn't muff that extra point at the end of the game, it probably would have been tied, would have went to overtime, and you could arguably say that Notre Dame would have won that game. But the thing is that Texas A&M and Notre Dame, especially when they're both ranked, like someone's bound to mess up. And unfortunately, I just picked the wrong team last year. I said that Texas A&M were going to do Texas A&M things and find a way to shoot themselves in the foot and lose this game. But what I forgot is that they're playing Notre Dame, who does the exact same thing. I just thought that Notre Dame had a little bit more to prove than Texas A&M, whereas Texas A&M is just kind of going out there every single day. But I think they make it into the top 10, especially after the win they had last week. And this next one, again, this is just because we've had so many like losses in this kind of realm, because obviously we lost Notre Dame, and we also lost South Carolina in this group of rankings. So naturally, I think the team that kind of fills in that spot is going to be Ole Miss. It was a very good game against Arkansas. Like, to be fair, like I thoroughly enjoyed this game against Arkansas. And Arkansas isn't necessarily a team that you necessarily write off, especially when they were undefeated coming into the game. So, like, they had a great game. They did everything well. Lane Kiffin has his moments, to be fair. And I feel like, again, naturally, because of all the teams that lost ahead of these two teams, they just kind of jumped the gun, unfortunately. Because you're going to see where Clemson is for me and where Notre Dame is for me. And it's obviously, not going to be in this realm right now, but, we'll get to that. So now we get to the 12th spot, and the 12th spot, the aforementioned 12th spot. Oh, this is the last team into the college football playoffs. Who do these people love talking about more? Like, this is literally going to be the whole thing this week, is Alabama being the last team out right now, even though it's, week 4 of the rankings, right? They're going to do this. It's going to be a big promotional deal all week where they're talking about, Alabama's in the 12th spot even after losing their game against Florida State, yada, yada, yada. And the thing is that you're probably wondering, okay, well, where's Iowa State? Iowa State were 14, Alabama were 19, so they're 5 spots ahead. Iowa State are going to move up, but Alabama's going to jump up. They're going to jump up 7 spots here to go number 12. And again, I know you're looking at this and be like, oh my God, this guy's an Alabama fan. I'm not. I'm genuinely not. But you know who is an Alabama fan? Hey, people. Hey, people, man. That's all I'm saying. And again, Iowa State, not the greatest. Their game against Arkansas State was very close. That was also another game that I watched. And I was like, wow, this is a really good game. I kind of want Arkansas State to win here. But Iowa State ended up pulling through, ended up being the better team, as they should, but only beat them by 6 points. Very winnable for Arkansas State. And giving up 35 points to Arkansas State, yes, you're on the road, but, come on. And then after that is kind of where we just kind of, weed out all of the teams that won and, take advantage of those blank spots. So we've got Texas Tech, we've got Indiana, if I can spell Indiana, and then we've got Utah, right? So again, very intricate, because before it was Utah 20th, Texas Tech 21st, and Indiana 22nd. But again, you look at the quality of win, and you're not going to look at, Utah on the road against Wyoming, they only beat them 31-6. That's, we'll move them up, but Texas Tech beat Oregon State at home 45-14. Wow, they blew them out. Indiana scored 73 points, and they're a Big Ten team, even though they're playing Indiana State. Yeah, we gotta move them up. I can see Indiana jumping Texas Tech here and going to the 14th spot, but we'll just keep it easy for ourselves, and Texas Tech and Indiana jump Utah, but Utah still move up, what would that be, 4 spots in the rankings? They were 20th last week. So that's where that goes. Now this is where we start implementing all of those, ranked teams that lost. But we're going to do the flip side of things here, and we are going to do what they did with Florida State in week 2. And that's put Georgia Tech right here at 17. This was basically what they did with Florida State. It was definitely a little bit higher than this, but for an ACC team, they're only going to do it, once for an ACC team, and they already did it for Florida State. Now you have a Georgia Tech team that beat Clemson. And again, the thing is that Clemson they're just not good. They're just not good. It is shocking to me. And again, they were 4th in the nation coming into the season. 4th. That means that if playoffs started tomorrow, they would be in there, which is unreal. And we're starting our season 1 and 2, right? That is just utter ridiculous. But Georgia Tech balled out, game-winning field goal. It'll boost them so high in these rankings, but They're only going to stay there for so long. And this is talking about an ACC conference this year that genuinely is awful. Georgia Tech could make the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but that's literally if they win the conference. In the college football playoff rankings, I don't really see an ACC team inside of like the top 13 once we get to, like conference championships. Like, the ACC is just, it's just horrible. Then after Georgia Tech, you're gonna have Missouri. Missouri had a really good win. They played Louisiana, held them to 10 points, scored 52. Right, they were 25 last week. This is essentially the same move that they did with Tennessee week 1. Then after Missouri, we're gonna have a Michigan team. Partly because Missouri is undefeated at the end of the day, and we've already got Texas here, who's a one-loss team, and Alabama, who's also a one-loss team. And, I feel like if you put them a little too close together, it gets a little too controversial. So I feel like having a team like Missouri and Georgia Tech ahead of Michigan, no one will bat an eye to this. Even though Michigan, and Alabama, quite honestly, should not be this high in the ranking. And then after that, this is kind of where, you think about the teams coming in from the rankings. And again, like I mentioned before, those teams that lost who are in, say, the top 15, top 10 area. So right after Michigan is going to be Auburn and the Tigers. Auburn played South Alabama, and again, it was nothing crazy to say the slightest. But this is like they're not going to jump Michigan in any way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, you got to put them ahead of the teams that I am now about to put in. At 21 to begin with is going to be Vanderbilt. I mean, a great win against South Carolina. A great win against that. Handled the ball on all accounts. You could not ask. And they're playing on the road. Vanderbilt might be the Georgia Tech team in this situation where they go to this 15, 16, 17 spot and Georgia Tech will find themselves 2021. But realistically, again, I don't think the AP poll will make it that blatant of oh, we love the SEC. Let's just change that right now. I've convinced myself. I have convinced myself of that, which is just disgusting. They're going to put Vanderbilt here, and they're going to put Georgia Tech here. Going into the mind of an AP poll voter, that's what I'm doing. Even though it should be switched. That's what I'm doing. And then after them is going to be Mississippi State. Mississippi State they received a few votes in last week's rankings. And they just crushed it this week. They did everything right. They scored as many points as possible, got on the board early, and just kept going throughout, kept the foot on the gas throughout the entirety of the game. So I think naturally Mississippi State gets a spot in the rankings. Also, I think that USC get a spot in the rankings. They played Purdue, and there were a couple of blunders, yes, but USC's offense is just so good. Granted, they probably didn't score as many points as I would have hoped for them to score against Purdue. But when you look at all the other teams who are kind of who received votes in front of them, it's Arizona State, BYU, Georgia Tech, and Florida. Florida obviously lost. Georgia Tech we just put in. BYU had a bye week, and Arizona State played Texas State. They played Texas State, and feel like they could have done a lot better in that game. If anything, okay, this is where I get very controversial because I'm putting South Carolina still in the rankings, and then just under them, we're putting Tennessee. Of course, we gotta keep as many SEC teams in there as possible. Even though I could wholeheartedly see Arizona State creeping back up into the rankings, but I think that naturally because they dropped out of the rankings last week, that this gives the AP poll even more reason to just be oh, well, yeah, South Carolina and Tennessee lost, but they were quality loss. South Carolina was not a quality loss. Tennessee, sure. But South Carolina, no shot. Realistically, I would put South Carolina under Tennessee at this point, but then, South Carolina is already dropping, what would that be, 13 spots, whereas Tennessee is only dropping 10 spots, which I feel like is pretty valid. These are the full rankings that I have this week. Penn State, I think, is going to jump Ohio State. We're going to have this weird, hodgepodge between Miami, Georgia, LSU, Oregon, and screw it, throw Texas in there, because we've been having this weird hodgepodge. for the last week now, because again, like, you had Oregon jumping Georgia. I think the exact same thing is going to happen, but now you're going to have LSU and Miami flip-flop as well. And while all of that is going on, Texas is just going to be on the sidelines like, hey, because again, like, they're just going through such a big identity crisis. And again, no one knows how good Arch Manning is. Simply put, that is Texas's big issue. They need to figure out how good Arch Manning is, and they need to figure it out quick, okay? Because I am still not convinced that they should even be in the top 10. Florida State is going to move up huge. Same thing with teams like Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama, jumping a team like Iowa State that, again, is undefeated. But the thing is that, oh, well, their schedule and their win against Arkansas State is not that good compared to Alabama's win. And then again, you got the middle of the pack, Texas Tech, Indiana, Utah. Then we introduced Vanderbilt, Missouri and Michigan and Auburn, who were the back of the rankings, now, you know, slowly move up into the top 20. Then you've got Georgia Tech because, yeah, realistically, they're only going to do one ACC team. And ironically, of course, it's going to be Florida State. It's not going to be Georgia Tech. And then you put Mississippi State in the rankings, you put USC in the rankings, and then you have South Carolina, Tennessee, and then you've probably got Arizona State. You're still probably going to have BYU out on that bubble as well. And then SMU and Tulane are probably going to be there as well, because Tulane played really well against Duke, but Duke slowly started making their way back. So again, I would just like to reiterate that this isn't me saying, oh, this is what the rankings should be. Screw what the AP poll says. No. That's not what I'm saying. More likely than not, this is what the AP poll is going to dish out later today after this video, gets published. This is probably what it's going to look like. And again, you're going to watch this video and you're going to go, oh my God, this list is disgusting. But if it's anything like this, it just proves the point of how much of a problem the AP poll is and how you should not be taking it as religiously as you are right now. Because I know you are. You're sitting behind your screen, you're looking at the AP poll, you're a fan of a certain team, you're going, oh, well, we're better than this team, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you are. Maybe you aren't. But the thing is that a bunch of journalists coming together in order to try and decipher that is not the way to go about it. Does that mean I have a solution? No. But I'm at least here to spread the word and spread the message that you should not be this stressed out about the AP poll. Because at the end of the day, they do not matter in the slightest. And even when the college football playoff rankings come out, they also do not matter. Because when they first come out, they are loosely based off of the AP polls. You will see a couple of teams switched here and there, but that is it. That is it, because they believe that the AP poll is a rough blueprint for what they can do for the college football playoff rankings. And at this point, you would have a Florida State team that really shouldn't be there. Same thing for, again, Alabama. That's going to be the talk of the town this week. Oh, Alabama's 12. They're the first team out. Blah, blah, blah. What do they need to do in order to... It's how they do it, guys. It's how they do it. We've been watching college football long enough. And if you haven't figured that out by now, that's what I'm here to do. So make sure to like, subscribe, put down in the comment section your thoughts and feelings and all that kind of stuff. Make sure to follow me on my social medias on TikTok and on Instagram, because I'll be posting a little bit on there throughout the week. I did a bad job of it last week posting on social media, i.e. I didn't post anything. But this week I will do a much better job, I promise, because there are some pretty interesting matchups that we have to look forward to next week. And when those AP poll rankings do come out later today, we will dissect them and we will go, oh yeah, they're going to do this because of this matchup right here. That's all to come. Again, make sure to follow me on my socials so you get those notifications, you get those updates. And yeah, I will be seeing you tomorrow for my reaction vid to the AP poll. Deuces, everybody.